We begin our show today with this story from Mike Birbiglia. Nothing explicit happens here at all, but it still might not be right for every young listener.
In 7th grade, people started making out with each other. And I remember this very well because I remember thinking, people we know are making out with other people we know? But how? And it just seemed like this alien ritual, where these two aliens kind of attach orifices all of a sudden. And I was like, I am not doing that. And collectively, all the girls in my class were like, that is fine. You are not on the list. You are not exactly a first-round draft pick for our new activity. It just seemed gross to me, making out. It's like watching a dog eat spaghetti. So I wasn't going to make out with anyone, and I was fine with that. But then it started to sort of create factions in the 7th grade class, sort of the make-out club and the non-make-out club. I mean, these weren't formal organizations. That would be very sad. A meeting of the non-make-out club. I call this meeting to order. First order of business, Nintendo. But we were, the non-make-out club had, we had a hard time because we were losing good people by the day. And I feared that soon I would be the lone member of the non-make-out club. So I was like, I need to join the make-out club, but I didn't have any real prospects. I had this one girl who I had a huge crush on who sat in front of me in class named Lisa Bizzetti, and she had to talk to me on the phone every night about homework thanks to alphabetical order. And so one time I said something that made her laugh, and I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I got to do that more. And then one time, she was actually laughing so hard, and she said, Mike, you got to stop. I'm going to pee myself. And I was like, wow. It was the closest I'd ever come to a vagina. And so I spent the next 15 years trying to get Lisa Bizzetti to pee, and that's how I ended up here. So one time I built up the courage to ask Lisa to go to a carnival with me, and she said yes, and I was so excited about this. I had this idea that we would go to the carnival, and I would winter a giant stuffed bear, and we would go on rides, and then we'd make out. Like, really simple, just like the romantic comedy montages. And I took her on a ride called the Scrambler. And I don't know if you have the Scrambler where you live. I imagine you do. It travels on a truck. The premise is that you sit on a two-person pod with the person you're in love with, and then that pod goes in a circle, which is part of an even larger circle, which is part of an even grander circle. As I understand it, it was originally designed as a medical device for people who have sharp objects stuck in their throat to help them purge the objects. It was called the Puke Your Facerator, and it was very successful. And then it was co-opted by the carnival workers of America, QOA, and they said, we like it, but we feel like the name is something of a turnoff. And then one guy goes, well, what about the Scrambler? And they're like, nailed it. But who is going to be in charge of this dangerous piece of equipment? And then one guy goes, well, I have a nephew who's 16 years old and smokes pot 24 hours a day. I feel like he might be available. And they're like, he sounds amazing. We don't even need to interview him. He sounds completely qualified. So we sit down on the Scrambler, and Lisa's snuggling up next to me, and I was thinking, like, this is it. Like, this is where it's all going to happen. But I think that when you're 12 years old, you just don't understand certain things about the digestive system. Like you don't know that you shouldn't eat popcorn and peanuts and funnel cake and cotton candy and then go on a machine that scrambles your body. Cotton candy being the most insane of these items. It's basically like saying, we're going to take sugar, which everyone knows is bad, but then we'll dress it up like insulation. And I'm like, I'm not sure what the selling point is there. Is it the sugar or the insulation? So I know from the moment they put the bar seatbelt down that I am going to throw up for sure. The bar seatbelt is not a very reassuring piece of safety equipment. That has never saved anyone's life. I mean, come on. I mean, I think the only thing it's ever done right is just held someone's esophagus down to the pavement in a scrambler accident, making sure that they are dead and that they cannot talk about the scrambler accident. I know when they put the bar seatbelt down, I'm going to throw up for sure. And I even say to the scrambler operator, I'm like, hey, actually, and then he was gone. Apparently, he doesn't enjoy the second halves of sentences. And so then I'm scrambling. And I'm scrambling, and I'm thinking, I need to come up with a plan of some kind. And my first plan was that I wouldn't look at Lisa, and I wouldn't look at any other people. So I'm like, don't look at Lisa, don't look at any other people. Don't look at Lisa, don't look at any other people. I need a new plan. And the new plan was that I needed to tell the scrambler operator that he needed to stop the ride. But the mathematics of the scrambler are such that the window of opportunity in which one can communicate with the scrambler operator is a very limited window. So I'm like, I gotta tell the guy to stop the ride. I gotta tell the guy to stop the ride. I gotta tell the guy to stop the ride. Please stop the ride. And then I'm back. 20 yards away, 30 yards away, 40 yards away, 20 yards away. I gotta say it louder. Please stop the ride. And then I'm back. 20 yards away, 30 yards away, 40 yards away. I'm like, I'm not sure he's paying attention. I think he might be smoking pot right now. And the third time I said, please stop that. And then I started throwing up. And it was not unlike an oscillating lawn sprinkler, you know, just popcorn and peanuts and insulation, really insulating the pavement with my homemade carnival salsa. And I did not look at Lisa, but I'm pretty sure she was staring at me, and we did not make out. Making out was no longer on the agenda that evening, and so I did not lose my mouth virginity. But the next year, it actually got worse because I went to an all-boys Catholic school, and I actually couldn't admit to my peers that I hadn't had my first kiss because I knew they would make fun of me mercilessly, you know. And so I, you know, when they would ask, I would just be like, yeah, you know. And I feared that at some point they would ask follow-up questions, you know. They'd be like, oh yeah, what's it like? And I'd be like, it's like licking an ice cream cone. And they'd be like, no, it's not. It's like sucking on a rocket pop. And I'd be like, oh, wrong frozen dessert analogy. Because these guys that I went to school with, I mean, they were just make-out machines. I mean, I sat behind this one guy in class named Sam Ricciardi, and he was like a make-out ninja. Like every Monday morning, I'd be like, what'd you do over the weekend? And he would just be like, made out with chicks. And I would be like, where? And he would be like, the mall, dude. The mall. As though that made sense, you know? And I was just trying to imagine this, like the mall, like what does that mean? Like he goes to the arcade and kind of like throws quarters around to the ladies and then invites one over to go to Orange Julius and then says, hey, you want to make out at the phone booth or whatever? Like I don't even know how that happens. So I thought my only chance to lose my mouth virginity was going to be at the annual St. John's dance. They had what they called cattle call dances, where they invite all the girls from all over the state to the St. John's Gymnasium for the sole purpose of making out. I mean, this was a gymnasium that was chock full of sweat and Banaka and Led Zeppelin and Drakkar Noir and I was flanked at the dance by my friend Sam, and we were introduced by our friend Tom to this girl, these two girls, and Sam said one of those phrases that we've all heard but is very uncomfortable. He said, "You get that one," which, you know, I know is uncomfortable to talk about, but I'm okay talking about it because I know I've been on the negative end of that conversation where some girl says of me, like, "You get that one," and then the other girl goes, "Ooh." Or even worse, "You owe me," which really hurts, you know, thinking about someone incurring debt based on my appearance. I don't want to hurt someone's credit score. So he says, "You get that one," and then I'm fast dancing with this girl Sandra, and I'm not great at fast dancing. She's losing interest in me by the second, and I'm saved by a slow song. It was "Stairway to Heaven," which is an 8-minute makeout anthem. And we're slow dancing, and you can't mess up slow dancing because it's just kind of a slow motion hug. You know, the only way you could mess it up is if you started fast dancing in the middle of it. And she was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I don't pick up on social cues." So we're slow dancing, and all I'm focused on is I just don't want to fidget too much because I'm a kind of a fidgety person. I fear if I fidget too much, I could initiate the tilt too early. That's one of the main ingredients of making out, the tilt, and then the area in between the two mouths, which is a very mysterious area. I mean, no one has video footage of that area. It's like the giant squid of making out. No one has seen it alive. They've just seen it washed up on shore, which is more specific to the squid side of the analogy. But you know what I mean. And so with about 3 minutes left in Stairway to Heaven, I make the slightest tilt, and then Sandra comes in strong, and then it was an all-out mouth war, you know, and she had artillery because she had braces, and it was like a dog eating spaghetti and the fork, and while this oral atrocity is taking place, all I can think is, I'm not alone anymore. I'm not in the non-makeout club. And it was this real seminal moment for me, but I couldn't share it with anyone because I walked off the dance floor and I had to play it off like this was something I had done before. So my friend Sam was like, "How'd it go?" And I was just like, "It was great, just like always." So a few days later, I call Sandra, and I'm thinking, you know, maybe we could have a relationship of some kind. And she doesn't call me back. And so I go to school one day, and I say to my friend Tom, who had introduced us, I go, "Hey, what's going on with Sandra?" And he has this kind of knowing grin on his face. And I'm like, "What? And he's like, "Nothing. And I was like, "What? And he was like, "Nothing. And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Oh, I talked to Sandra, and she said that you're the worst kisser she's ever kissed." I know. It was devastating, you know, because, you know, first of all, because it was probably true. But more importantly, because I couldn't explain to my friends, you know, why it was true. I couldn't be like, "Well, that makes sense, because I've never kissed anyone before. I had no idea what I'm doing." So instead, I had to just be like, "Yeah, that sounds about right." I'm a terrible kisser. That's kind of my thing, you know. But I was lucky because my friend Sam was right there with me, and he goes, "Me too, dude. Me too."
Mike Birbiglia, performing a story from his new one-man show and his new book that is coming out this fall. The book is called Sleepwalk with Me and Other Painfully True Stories.